Good morning, girls. In previous video lecture, we show how to define a foreign key constraint, and if we want to apply a foreign key constraint on an existing table, that also we have learned in the previous session, right? Then we also covered how to drop a foreign key constraint and what is the effect of foreign key constraint on child table and on the parent table, right? So everything we covered in the previous sessions, 2 or 3 sessions we took for that. We seen some examples also. So now it should be clear to you. અને આજે today we are going to cover some more constraints which are mostly used with Oracle database. So let us start. We'll take some more examples of these constraints, and let us begin with not null constraint. As you can see on the screen, we are going to learn today not null constraint as well as unique constraint. SQL not null constraint. By default, a column can hold null values. The not null constraint enforces a column to not accept null values. Here, null constraint means if you apply a constraint, not null constraint on the column, this constraint do not allow the null value in the specified column, right? By default, a column can hold null values, but in case if you are declaring your column as a not null constraint, not null column, then it will not allow you to leave it blank. અહીંયા આગળ not null constraint જ્યારે તમે કોલમ પર અપ્લાય કરો છો ત્યારે એની અંદર તમે નલ વેલ્યુઝ છે એ પાસ કરી શકતા નથી, એટલે કે એ કોલમને તમે બ્લેન્ક રાખી શકતા નથી. By default, column can hold null values, right? જો તમે કોઈ પણ constraint declare જ નથી કરતા, if you are not declaring any constraint for that column, by default the column can hold the null values. That is acceptable. But in case if you are declaring a column as a not null, then it will not allow you to accept a null values in that particular column. This constraint enforces a field to always contain something in it, which means that you cannot insert a new record or update a record without adding a value to this field. Got it? જ્યારે તમે not null constraint column પર apply કરો છો ત્યારે તમે આ particular જે field છે એની અંદર નવો record add કરવા time પર or at the time of updating that particular record, આ ફિલ્ડ માટેની વેલ્યુ નાખ્યા વગર તમે રેકોર્ડને ઇન્સર્ટ કરાવી શકશો નહીં, અપડેટ કરાવી શકશો નહીં. So let us see the syntax of not null constraint, how we can apply this constraint on a column. Here you can see the syntax on the screen. Syntax is given: create table, then table name, create table, table name, then bracket begin as usual, then column 1 and its data type. Now you can specify whether this column is null or not null. If you are declaring this column as a primary key field, by default it will not accept the not null value, right? By default you should enter something in that particular column. Column 2, data type. Then again you can specify whether you want to apply a constraint null or not null by writing null or not null. If you do not write anything over here, it will be treated as null acceptable, right? By default it will take null value. Then more columns you can define over here. At last, column n, its data type. Again you can specify the constraint whether it is null or not null. Here you can see the example of not null constraint. Example number 34. Create table, persons. Here we want to declare 3 columns for this table: ID, name and age. ID, its data type is number, which is declared as primary key. As I told you that if you are declaring your column as a primary key, no need to specify not a null constraint with that column, because primary key by default it will not accept any null values. Fine, you must enter something in that field if you are declaring your column as a primary key. Then second column, name, and the length is varchar 25, and it is declared as not a null field. Not null constraint is applied on this column. So what should we do? Whenever you try to enter a record for this table, right, the first field is compulsory, second is compulsory because we applied a not null constraint on this field, and third one is age, and there is no constraint apply on this field. So by default it accept the null value also. You can leave the blank for this field, or even you can enter something for this field. Let us try to understand this example through SQL. Practically we are going to implement this example, right? So open your SQL window. Here we will create a new table with name, persons, create table, persons. As I told you that I want to declare 3 columns for this table: ID, name and age. I will write ID and the data type is number, and the length is 3. Then constraint I want to apply on this column is primary key. So here you cannot leave this field empty. Whenever you try to enter a new record in person table, you cannot leave this field empty, right? Then second field is name field. This is varchar. I don't want to declare as a primary key, but I will apply not a null constraint on it. Fine. And the third field is age field. Your table should have more than one fields with not null constraint applied on it, right? So it is up to you what type of structure you want for your table. Accordingly you can create this table: age, number, and the length is 3. See here I can write not null. What is the effect of writing this not null over here? Whenever you try to enter a new record in person, you must enter a value for age field also, right? And if I am not writing not null constraint with this column, so I can leave this field empty whenever I enter a record in person. It is up to us that we want to enter a value for this field or not. Fine. So this time I am leaving this without constraint. One table is created. Let us enter some records in this table. Insert into persons. Values are 1. The name is Shriya and the age is 20. Bracket over and semicolon. Fine. One row is created. Now try to enter one more record. Insert into persons. Now I want to omit the value for age this time, so I will specify the name of columns. I want to enter value for ID and name only. Two, and the name is Sita, bracket over, semicolon. One more record I will insert into persons. This time I don't want to enter a value for name field. Let's see what happened. I just want to enter the values for ID and age. Values are 3 and age is 22, bracket over and semicolon. Now press enter. Yes, expected error, we got an error, cannot insert null into person dot name field. It is showing an error that we cannot insert a null into scott.persons.name field. Why it is showing this error? Because at the time of creation of person table, we declare the second field name, right? And we applied one constraint on it, that is not a null constraint. So it is not acceptable to add a new record without entering a value for this field, right? Opposite to this, in the second insertion, what we had seen, ID and name, we entered only two fields, but we omitted the third field, age. We didn't enter any value for age field. Still it was acceptable. Why? Because age is not declared as a not null, right? The constraint not null is not applied on this field, so it is acceptable by the age field without any value. So here you can see the difference between not null and null. By default it take null. Whether you specify that this field is null, then also it is equal to default null. Clear? Let us go back to our document. Next constraint is SQL unique constraint. The unique constraint ensures that all values in a column are different. Unique, what is the meaning of unique? Unique means the different values, right? Here for Oracle database, we can consider the meaning of unique as a different value. Both the unique and primary key constraint provide a guarantee for uniqueness of value for a particular column or set of columns, right? If we declare a field, if we declare a column as a unique, or if we declare a column as a primary key, both gives us guarantee for uniqueness, right? બેવ constraint ની અંદર આપણે column ને અંદર જે value નાખીએ છીએ, it must be unique જ હોવી જોઈએ અને એ guaranteed આપણને unique value જ accept કરશે. But both are different. A primary key constraint automatically has a unique constraint. There is no need to specify separately that this field should be unique. I want to declare this field as a unique field, right? Primary key constraint automatically take that field as a unique constraint. It apply automatically. However, you can have many unique constraint per table, but only one primary key constraint per table. See, this is the difference between primary key and unique. You can have many unique constraints per table. We can define more than one column as a unique column, but we cannot define more than one column as a primary key for our table. So that is the main difference between unique and primary key. Unique constraint does not allow duplicate values, right? But it allows to accept a null values for that particular column. Here, one more thing you have to keep in your mind, that unique constraint does not allow a duplicate values for a column. However, more than one null values are allowed. You can enter a null value in that particular column. If you apply a unique constraint somewhere, that column will allow you to enter a null value for that particular column. But in case of primary key, you must enter something that too unique in that particular column. So this is the difference. These are the difference between unique and primary key. Fine. This is an important question for your examinations. They frequently ask this question and differentiate primary key and unique key. Now let us see the syntax of how to define a unique key in Oracle. Here you can see create table, table name, then as usual define your columns with constraints. This is a column level constraint application, right? Column 1 data type and then unique. Column 2 data type null or not null. Column n data type null or not null. As I explained you can apply unique constraint on more than one column as well. So we can write like this also, right? Unique, you can apply unique constraint on more than one column, but you cannot apply a primary key constraint on more than one column. So this is a difference between column unique and primary key. Even you can do like this. Here you can declare the first field as a primary key and the second one as unique. Then the third column is again you can declare as unique, right? This is a syntax. Now SQL unique constraint on create table. Let me see the example of unique constraint. Here you can see the SQL create a unique constraint on the ID column when the person table is created. We recently created a person table. Let us drop the table first. Here person table is already exist, so we will drop the person's table first by giving a command drop table persons, right? Drop it and create once again. Create table persons, create table persons ID number as a unique constraint, ID data type is number, length is 3, and apply the unique constraint on it. Unique, you have to just write down the keyword unique beside it, then define some other columns, last name, first name and age. Last name is varchar2 and the length of this field is 20. Not null constraint we want to apply on this column. Last name, then first name, again the data type is varchar2, length is 20, and not null constraint we will apply on it. Then last is age, number, length is 3, and I don't want to apply any constraint on this field, so leave it and then bracket over and then semicolon. Press enter. Missing an invalid option. We forgot to do the bracket, right? Starting bracket. How we can do the correction in this query? Select this query, then copy it, then open Notepad, paste the query over here, and just do the correction in it like this. Okay, correct it. Now select whole query, copy it, and paste over here, and now execute. Table is created. So how to do the correction in query? Got it? Open the Notepad, then paste your query over there, do the correction, and then again copy that particular query from Notepad and paste it over here, I mean in the SQL window, and execute it once again. It will be corrected. Now what is next? Table is created, right? So let us try to enter some records in this table. We will enter the records by insert query, insert into persons, insert into persons. Values are 1, then the last name is Shah, first name is Preeti, and then age is 21. Bracket over and press enter. One row is created in person table, right? Let me insert one more record with the same ID. Here what I am trying to do is trying to enter the same value, and the other values are different. Bracket over. So here we got an expected error, that is unique constraint violated. What is this? What this error is showing? That unique constraint is violated. We have declared this field, ID field, as a unique field, right? So we cannot enter the repeat value for this field. And what I have done in this query, see, it has already ID number 1 in it, but I tried to insert one more time the same ID for person table. So the error is shown, unique constraint violated. Person table ની અંદર ID number 1 already stored છે. Second time same ID થી મેં record insert કરવાની try કરી છે. That's why the constraint, unique constraint is violated, and it did not allow us to enter a record in this table with the same ID. Now do one thing, change the ID number. Clear? As I have changed the value for ID column, this record is inserted into person table. Select star from person. Got it? Now you know about not null also, right? We must enter something for this fields, but it allow us duplicate values as well. These two fields are declared as not null, so this will allow us to enter a duplicate value for these two fields also. Then ID is declared as unique, it must be unique, but we can omit the value at the time of insertion. Let us try it. Insert into persons, right? Specify the column names. I don't want to enter anything for id, as I told you that it will allow us to enter a null for the first field. Last name, first name, and age. Values are last name is Mishika, age is 22. One row is created. Once again, fire this query, select star from persons, and see the output. Here you can see the ID number missing, right? ID number is missing because, as I told you, that unique constraint either accept unique values for that particular field or accept the null value for that particular field. Fine. Let me insert one more record. At the end, don't forget to put the semicolon and press enter. As you can see the message on the screen, one row is created. Now fire the same query, select star from persons, select star from persons. As you can see the result on the screen, the ID column. Observe the ID column. This column, the first two rows having values, that too unique, but the next two rows, they don't have any values stored in this column, right? For that particular column, ID is missing. As I explained you that if we declare a column as a unique column, then either you must enter something for that column, or you can pass the null value for that particular column. Let me insert one more record for this field. Insert into persons. Now this time I don't want to omit the value for ID field, so I am writing ID, then first name, then second name, not second name but last name and first name, last name comma first name. Fourth value is, now I don't want to enter the value for age field. The values are ID is, try to enter the same value 2. Name we will enter, and then surname, bracket close, and press enter. Again we got the same message, unique constraint violated. Why this error comes on the screen? Because we are trying to enter the same ID for this record also, right? If you want to insert this record into your table, just replace the ID with unique value, and this will allow you to enter the value in person table. Fine. Let us copy the remaining part from the previous query, paste it, semicolon, and then press enter. So here you can see the message, one row created. let me execute the select query one more time. Select star from persons semicolon and press enter. So here you can see the whole structure of person table. For the third and fourth row, ID is missing, and for the fifth row we omitted the value for age field. Okay, got it? This is an example of unique constraint, example number 35. In your journals you also note down the same example and do the different experiments as I have done in this session, right? Here, to name a unique constraint and to define a unique constraint on column, use the following SQL syntax. See here, at the table level we are going to apply a constraint. So let us execute this example in SQL window. For that, what we have to do first, drop the table which is already exists with the same name. Drop table persons. Table is dropped. Now create one more time. Create table persons. Create table persons. Then the first field is ID. Now keep in mind that I don't want to apply the unique constraint at column level. I want to apply this constraint at table level. Yes, for that we will not write the unique constraint over here. ID as a number, the length is 3, not null. See here I am applying not null constraint on this field also. So we'll see the effect of this 2 constraint on this field. The second field I want is name. Let me take one field only, name, varchar 2, and the length is 30. Last, age, data type is number, and the length is 3, and constraint. As we have done in the previous lecture, after the keyword constraint, give the name to this constraint. Constraint is unique constraint, so I am giving UC, and this is for person table. So persons I am writing. As per your desire, you can keep the name of constraint, but it must be suitable to your constraint, right? Constraint UC underscore persons, then unique constraint, and into bracket the name of column on which you want to apply this constraint. Here I want to apply this constraint on ID column of person table. So I wrote ID in the pair of parentheses. Then what we will do, bracket over and then semicolon. One table is created. Now try to insert the same record as we have entered in the previous example. Let us begin with the ID number 1. Insert into person. Values are this. One row is created. One more record. Insert into person. Values. Let me specify the column names. This time I don't want to enter the value for ID column. So I will write name and age. Values are 2. Name is Kritika, and age is 21. Bracket over, press enter. Yes, here we got an error, that is cannot insert a null into this field. Why? Because we have applied the constraint unique on this field, as well as not null is also applied. Here you can observe that not null constraint is also applied on this field, as well as unique constraint at the column level, at the table level we have applied, right? So this will not allow you to insert a null value in this particular field. We must enter something in this field, and that too unique value, right? As we have applied a unique constraint on this field, so we cannot enter the duplicate value for this field, as well as we cannot leave this field null. Let me insert the same record one more time with a different format. Now this time we'll enter all the values, so no need to specify the column names. Directly we can write values. Try to enter a duplicate value. Got the error message, unique constraint violated, right? Now let me take a different value other than 1. And press enter. One row is created. So here it is an example of unique constraint. Both the way we gone through both the ways how to define unique constraint at column level, as well as how to define a unique constraint at table level. And we also covered what is the effect of unique constraint if we apply on a particular specified column. That's it. This is enough for today. Thank you.